Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today we're going to work on a series of reels that Paulo has sent in to me. He's out in California. He says that he's got a Penn Senator here where the free spool is not working, and that's kind of curious. So we'll do a little problem diagnosis here. We'll see if we can repair the reel, and we'll learn from it together. It's rather unusual, that's why I'm choosing this as a topic. So the best way to do the analysis is to remove the side plate, and then we'll see what we need to do. As I remove the side plate, I want to take a moment to thank our first responders and essential personnel, all of the people that are working tirelessly to keep us safe during this pandemic. Your efforts truly are outstanding. You are our local hometown heroes, and your efforts are appreciated. Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to remove the handle. You saw me take that off with the handle wrench. Next, I'm going to remove the star adjuster, the little shim washer, and this is an older Senator. It has external drag washer replacement. So if you were just to replace the drag washers, well, you can remove the whole segment coming out of the front of the thing without disturbing the side plate. So that's a feature on some of the Senators, not all of the Senators. We're also missing a little lug here for our harness lug for the fighting of the fish, where you would wrap that around your strap to hold on to the reel or the pole as you're fighting the bigger fish. So this is the 4.0 Senator. It's a very versatile reel. It's one that can be used for fighting big fish, usually done with trolling. And in this case, we have a lot of braid wrapped on this rod. And Paulo says he uses this one up in the Bay Area. So we'll see if we can't get this one back out there fishing again. All right, so I'm pulling all of the screws out. You'll notice a couple of things as I'm doing that. The first is that I wear a protective glove on my hand. That glove keeps the grease and the light, the contaminants inside the reel off my hand. I work on a lot of reels. There's a lot of junk in them, and I just like to err on the side of caution if possible, and keep my hand protected. I'd wear one on the other hand, but I just don't have a comfort level in grip and so on using that on my working hand. Otherwise I would. I also use a parts tray. That's where all of the pieces that I take off of the reel go. It's the bottom of a milk jug, nothing fancy, but it is by all means a convenience that I've learned to treasure. And the reason that I do that is so that when I go to reinstall the reel, I know where to find the pieces and parts. All right, I'm going to just wrap an elastic band around this. I want to save the braid for him. We don't want to lose too much here. An elastic band is a good way to keep that from unspooling while we work on the rest. On this side of the 4.0, there really isn't much. We'll go do some cleaning in a little while, but there's just a bearing, and that bearing gets oiled, and that's all you need to do on this side. This if it has been for trolling, there's very little indication of wear on the click tongue, which means that as this thing has been firing up, it just hasn't been used. Many trolling reels, that's an essential part of trolling, and used quite frequently. All right, let's turn this over, see what we got. Well, interestingly enough, somehow, some way, two things have happened here. The first one is we are missing the spring that is for the eccentric, and the second one is that the jack became detached from the yoke. So we'll use this video to show you how to repair both. In order to do that, you want to remove the bridge. This is the bridge. We'll go ahead and take this is your spring here. It fell out, so this is curious. I've never seen it where it's happened this way, but that's all right. We can repair that. Good news is we don't have to go chasing a spring. It's right here, and it appears to be in good condition. If it's not, we'll certainly go back and get a new one to replace it. I think it's the same spring that's used in the Jigmaster. Penn didn't have a lot of variation on these springs. And we'll show you how to set that up too. So I'm going to remove the bridge first. There's 4 screws. I lay them on my table just to make sure that the screws are all the same. Now, I've worked on this reel enough to know that they are, but it's good practice as you take your screws out to lay them out, make sure that they're all the same. And in this case, you're going to notice that there's 2 springs that are partially threaded and 2 springs that have the full threading on them. The partially threaded ones go up top. That partial threaded, the smooth surfaces of it actually ride through a spring assembly. And then the bottom ones are fully threaded. There's nothing to impact it there. All right, we should be able to push through the bridge, but in order to do that, you have to remove the inner trim ring. You'll notice that the gear on this falls below that trim ring line. So let's take that out. This is going to fall out. I don't know the story behind that, but it's out. And now I want to cup my hands because there's an anti-reverse dog in here, and there's a spring on that. So if you can cup your hands, you can catch the spring without it shooting out. We pull up on this. This is the inner part. These are the 2 springs I was talking about where that screw will pass through. Here's the anti-reverse dog, and there's that spring I was concerned about right there. So let's go ahead and take that off and put that into the parts tray so that we don't lose sight of that. All right, this is the bridge. We'll get back to this in a moment to service the reel. But what we really want to do first and foremost is we want to reset the eccentric and the spring. To do that, we want to remove the screw that's holding that trip lever arm in. I'm just looking for a bigger screwdriver at the moment. It's always good and appropriate to use a screwdriver that's the same width as the slot on that screwdriver. All right, so here's your spring. The spring is going to lodge in that wedge, or that V-shape in the side case. It's got a 90-degree bend on it, which is going to go into the hole underneath the eccentric here, just like that. And then you're going to take both. You're going to hold the piece in, and you're going to set the spring like that. Now you're off here. This spring has to get loaded, and sometimes you can load it by hand by turning this. And I don't have the strength. Sometimes use an assist, but use it lightly. I'm going to use a little pliers here, just grabbing it very lightly. I don't want to scar that stud coming out. And then you want to get it where you have a balance point here, where the spring is loaded and you have the balance point, because then you can take this arm here and reinstall that as the lever, and then reinstall the screw. And be careful not to push out on that eccentric. Now you've got it partially loaded. There's an equilibrium point there, and if you're not careful, you're going to lose the equilibrium. It's going to snap on you. You're going to have to do it again. Well, I'm having a little bit of difficulty here while I'm kind of taking care of the technical difficulty of getting that screw started. I'd like to tell you, if you are interested in reel repair, if you like reel repair as a hobby, if you like to see how reels come together, how they come apart, how they get serviced, well, then it's a good time to ask you to subscribe to my channel, because that's what I show on a regular basis. And in this case, you just learned how to set the eccentric screw and spring. Still find it curious that it kind of popped off, but that's the way it is. While I have my reel apart, I'm going to clean it. To do that, I'm going to use a penetrating oil. In this case, I'm using WD-40, but any penetrating oil will do. And I just want to get the old grease that's kind of lodged in the inside of the side plates here. Get that out of the way, because grease will hold contaminants. And you can see how this glove works now. I've got some penetrating oil that I've managed to keep off my hands. There's some grease on the yoke. Let's take care of that. I like to use the least abrasive of all if I can get away with it. So in the case of this, I can wipe that old grease away with a paper towel. That's exactly what I'm going to do. This is your pinion gear, and I want to make sure that the channels on that gear are clear. They look very clean. I'm just going to come on in here and use a hard bristle brush. You can use a toothbrush. You can use one of the dollar store brushes like I have here. Actually, I think that's a Home Depot brush, whatever. And just clear the channels to make sure that you don't have old grease lying around in them. All right, with that set, we can go ahead and install the yoke. going to take the two yoke springs. Those go in the cavity, just like this. We're going to put grease onto the shoulder of the yoke where that pinion gear is going to ride. Just like that. You can see the glove holds the grease from getting on you. And then we're going to put grease onto the pinion gear so that it has a fresh set of lube. Before we install the rest, we're going to put some oil onto the bearings. I oil my bearings, I don't grease them. And now we'll install the yoke assembly. So the yoke and the pinion gear go over the core of those springs. You push down. You want to set your free spool release to up. Get the jack, kind of hook it around. And you just want to snap it in there, like that. So we're set now. That is how the jack assembly works. You want to put some grease onto the shoulders of the jack because when it slides under the bridge, you want that lubricated. You can also put a little bit of grease onto the eccentric, and that one's ready for a reinstall. So let's go over to the bridge then. We'll show you how to maintain that. First, you want to take everything out of there, and we're going to remove the gear sleeve so that we can clean up underneath and give that fresh lubrication. To remove that gear sleeve, you want to use a pin, an awl, or any of the above. Kind of push that through. And if you're having trouble moving it like I am on this one, just grab a little tap hammer, set it up. It's probably off camera, but it's the only place I can get the angle. And just tap it through like that. Okay. If this is very dry, which is one of the reasons why you do this, just use pliers again. Just be kind of cautious with it. You don't want to bugger it up where you can't get it back in. There we go. And you can see we have a whole bunch of dried grease in that. Grease gets trapped in these two little vent sections here. It slows the performance of the reel as it dries, and sometimes it'll even cause that to break off. So I'm going to use the penetrating oil just to clean the debris off of that. And while I'm at it, we're going to clean the bridge from all of the dried grease that's on there. So if you have any questions on this reel or any reel in particular, leave them in the comments section. I'll be happy to try and address your questions for you. Maybe you're stuck on a reel, maybe you've got a problem with a reel that you can't understand, or you've tried a couple of guesses at, and just your problem persists. Well, if you leave those questions in the comments section, I'll try and answer them for you based on my experience. If I don't know the question, I'll let you know, and hopefully I'll be able to tell you where you can go to find an answer. All right, we got a whole other set of dirt from underneath there, so I ran the cotton swab through there. I've re-greased the shaft. You can go ahead and put this back on. Now, sometimes you can tap that in, push that in. In this case, I'm just going to use the pliers to pull that in. And when you do pull it in, make sure that you clear the shoulder here where that pin goes in, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to get that main gear back on. And right now, I think I'm a little bit proud. Okay, that should work. This is your drag assembly. I'm going to push those out. And these have been sitting in there a while. I can just feel that they're kind of stuck. This is why you want to do a service on a regular basis. You want to make sure that your drag washers are clean and that they stay lubricated so that they function properly. In this case, these are all kind of dried up quite a bit. All right, we have the 3 washers out. These are the old thicker washers. They're pretty much like an asbestos type of a washer. You want to make sure that faces are smooth. These seem to have gotten stuck in the channel, so I'm just going to use a little bit of a flat file just to make sure that the face stays flat, that any imperfections are kind of worn off of them. And they're clean throughout, a little bit here as well. And you want to do the same on your faces here. You can see where maybe some grease is dried and it became gum. And I'm going to use a piece of steel wool just to get that stuff off the surface so that this remains slippery. That's kind of the idea behind the drags. You can see in a couple of situations here, as well as on the inside of the gear, that there's some impediments to smooth operations. And then on the inside here, on the inner track, I'm noticing that there's some greases and the like that have accumulated there. So make sure that the inside of the case is clear too. While you're at it, check the teeth of the main gear. These are fine, they're clean. I don't even need a brush, there's nothing in there. So I'm going to start by greasing that. And then we'll put a light coat of grease. You don't need to, these are asbestos, you really don't need to do, I'm thinking it's asbestos, whatever the hard washer is. You really don't need to do any lubrication on those, but it doesn't hurt to put a light coating on. So it's time to reassemble then. So let's take that greased gear and put that on the shaft first. Then I'm going to put a light coating of grease onto this asbestos washer. I'm going to wipe it off. So it's a matter of just using it as a cleaner and a light grease. And then you'll notice we have different types of washers. We have a round keyed washer and we have a eared washer which has points. There's only one of these, there's two of those. So the two flank the other. So first one in is the round or the keyed washer. We'll do this again with the grease on the piece. And here's another reason I wear that protective glove. I can use it as a tool, smear the grease around and not get it all over my fingers. So this is number 2. Press that in. We'll take the next one, which is the eared washer. That one always goes in the middle, and that lodges in the indentations in the inside of the main gear. And then we'll do one more here. And that sets up your main drag stack, with the exception of the cap washer. So this one's ready to get reinstalled. And again, you can service those from the outside of the reel. You don't need to have the reel apart to do that, but since this was apart, it just makes a lot of good sense to do that. One more piece before reassembly, and that's to clean off the anti-reverse dog here, or the AR dog. It's just got dried grease on it like everything else did. All right, let's reassemble. You're going to find the fully threaded screw. Remember we said that there was 2 that are partially threaded and 1 is fully threaded. And grab your side plate, push down on your yoke assembly and turn your bridge halfway so that you can hold the yoke assembly in with the tail of that bridge. Next up then, you want the fully threaded screw to the bottom. And if the drag washers are falling out of the front, don't worry about it. Hold the screw from the bottom, install the dog over that screw, and then find your anti-reverse dog spring. That little coil spring is going to go right in the pocket here that's created, this little cavity. So go ahead and do that. And watch it, it will shoot, but it needs to get lodged just like that in order to be set properly. Then complete your rotation, line up that screw with the bottom hole, and then use your screwdriver to begin tightening it down. Now don't fully tighten it down because you want to make sure that you get the other screws in the holes before you tighten them all the way down. And these bridges are fairly sensitive in terms of the alignment of those holes. You pretty much need to be spot on. And if you're not spot on, you're going to have an issue with starting these screws. So just start them. I kind of go north, south, east, west. But if you start them, and then if you find you're having any difficulty, you might have to back it up. Now, this one is not aligning. That's because there's the hole in the yoke that it needs to go through. So I just use a centering pin to kind of straighten that up. and then we'll come back down and we'll finish this one. Okay, once you get the last one in, you can go tighten and do the same thing. Reverse them, kind of go east, west, north, south. So I repair reels by mail, and if you have a reel that needs to be serviced and you're not up for doing it yourself, you can send that on to me. I do try to teach everybody how to do this, but again, it's not for everybody. And if you are not comfortable doing it and would like me to service it, contact me by email on the business card that follows. I'll be happy to provide you with that reel repair information. All right, just one more thing before we go reinstall this back on the reel, and that is to set the trim ring back on. Best way to do that is just find a notch and align it with where that lug should be. And again, you can use a centering pin for that. Get them lined up, press it on, and then we can reinstall over the frame and the spool. I'm going to use my brush one more time to get a little bit of grease onto the spool shaft. I'm going to grab the side plate, put this back on. When it's time to reinstall, pull your screws out. You're going to find that there's a long screw and a short screw. The short screws belong in the reel seat below, and the long screws belong in the cross posts. So there's a series of them. There's 3 shorts and 4 longs, if I remember. The 4 longs go in the cross posts. So here's one. And again, this is missing that harness lug here. But that's another curiosity. You first wonder how that jack could be disconnected like that, and the next thing you wonder is, well, how did a harness lug which is screwed into a reel fall off? That's kind of unusual, but things happen. Alright, so I took a long one and I kind of balanced it that way. Now I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to, just like the other one, I'm going to alternate my directions so I keep the torque equal on these reels. One on this side, kind of going northeast, southwest, just kind of balancing the whole thing out. Take another short one for the reel seat. I'll go back over to the other side. So if you like this video, please indicate that. Put a like in there. Apparently it helps in the rankings of the videos, and I would appreciate the feedback. And you can use the comment section for feedback as well. Doesn't just have to be about asking questions and the like. All right, a long one goes next to it here. We're pretty much getting to the point where we can go test, make sure that the function is right on this one, that we have the free spool, which we kind of already tested, and that everything is operating so that Apollo can get this back out there fishing again. I just noticed that the one on the bottom here is the wrong one. That was a short screw I just picked up there. We'll just make that change now. The problem with the long screws is that they hang out of the bottom of the reel seat, and if they hang out, you can snag line on it. So it'll certainly have no effect on holding the side plate on, but you can snag the line, and that's kind of a bad position to be in, whether you're casting, trolling, or whatever, to have the line snag up on you there. Hate to lose a fish because a screw was misinstalled. All right, there we go. All right, so that is the side plate. Now we'll go put that tension spring or cap washer back on. We'll put the top washer back on. Now it's time to grab the star adjuster. Make sure that that all tightens down. Nice reel. This reel's probably been around about 30 years. This is the second or third generation of this. So the first of the Senator's generations was the black-sided ones, lower speed. Then they went to the high-speed versions. Those high-speed versions initially had straight crossbars, and then they went to this Senator 2, and the Senator 2s had kind of like the Jigmaster bars, kind of along the sides here. And then they went to a half frame. So you can generally tell the age of the Penn Senator by the crossbars that you're working on. And this, again, this would probably be the second or the third generation of them. A lot of different generations. The Senator is one of the original reels that Penn came out with. Okay, tighten your screw down. Make sure that there's a scallop where the tie-down screw goes for the handle. We'll go ahead and put this together, and then we'll just do a quick test here to make sure that the reel is doing what the reel should be doing. There we go. Get my grease out of the way. Let's give it a spin here. We're in free spool now, so we should have a free spooling. I'm going to trip that. Give a nice rotation. Check your drag washers. There's a little play in there. Tighten it down. There you go. This one's ready to go fishing again. The only thing I missed so far then is just a little bit of oil onto the seam here where the handle goes, just to help it work a little bit more efficiently. There you go. Make it spin nicely. And that's it. That's how to identify a problem in a free spool release. In this case, it was a rather unusual one. I don't know if I've seen that one before. How to take the reel apart, how to service it, and how to get it working again. Just as a side note, if you do have those asbestos washers and you want more drag, more max drag, you can remove those thicker washers and put thinner washers in of the new modern HT100s. Instead of a stack of 3, you get a stack of 4 or a stack of 5. I'm not sure how many it takes to replace. When you do that, you get more surface area. When you get more surface area, you get more max drag. So that's something you can do there. Okay, that's it. The Penn Senator 113 HL with a free spool release problem that's been solved. So to everybody, I wish you a great day. Please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. And have a great day. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.